Order, roll call please.
Showalter,
Here.
Myers,
Here.
Howard,
Here.
Redland,
Here.
Thompson.
Here. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Public comment. We got anybody tonight? No? No presentations or proclamations. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have A, the 6/6/22 commission meeting minutes, and then B, the appropriation ordinances 2022-12, 2022-12A, and 2022-P12. Do you have any questions or comments on those? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Redland,
Second.
a second by Commissioner Myers. Any other further discussion? Roll please.
Myers,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Redland,
Yes.
Showalter,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Okay, move on to formal actions. First we have the Housing Authority Board application for Timothy Wright. Kent, I don't know if you wanted to speak to that real quick.
This was recommended by Sheila Barnett, the Executive Director with the Housing Authority. They did have Tracy Hilmer, who resigned her position, coming up in less than a month, effective July 12th. But they do have Timothy Wright, who currently serves in our police force as police sergeant, also wants to serve on the Housing Board, and get some additional insight in the community at that location, and wants to serve in that capacity. So it's recommended for your consideration.
Okay, anybody have any comments or concerns? I think it would be a good appointment personally. I think he does a fantastic job with the police department, and I think he'd be a good fit on the board. So. On that, I guess I will move to approve Timothy Wright's application to be on the Housing Board, Housing Authority Board.
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Redland. Any other further discussion? Roll please.
Showalter,
Yes.
Redland,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to B, Resolution 1589, K.AV-2023-25 KAIP, Pavement Preservation Grant. That just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
And we were guessing whether you'd be able to say it.
Well, if you bet against, you did well.
We had provided information to you earlier that we had received this grant. It's not, doesn't have anything to do with the current project. It'll be after this project is done, probably in either next year or the following year. But it's basically a pavement preservation grant for runway 1230, which is the main runway. Right now, the current project's on the crosswind runway. And it's joint seal and repainting of that and a portion of the general aviation apron. There's about $454,500 that involved with the KDOT grant. $409,100 will be the state's responsibility. The remainder will be ours. It's a 90-10 split. We're also, the city's also responsible for the cost for design engineering, but there won't be much associated with this joint seal and repainting. So
We know what the current funding level is for the airport. Yeah.
I believe I can tell you. I think it's like 376 or something.
I know we haven't ended up using much the last couple of years.
355.
Basically, we're looking at covering basically 50,000-ish. That would come
Still
out of that.
300,000 still.
Anybody else have any other questions or concerns?
Well, I think we've been putting a lot of money in there, out there, at least. It makes sense to just make sure that we're keeping it up to par.
Yeah.
Well, they haven't done it since 2006.
Yeah, I don't know when
year, so yeah.
I don't know how long it lasts. Seems a long time.
Yeah, and there has been a lot of money invested out there lately, and you know, we've been lucky enough on our end to not have to be responsible for hardly any of that. You know, most everything's been paid for 100% by grants lately, so.
Good.
There is a resolution at the end of that portion of the packet, resolution number 1589.
I would entertain a motion to approve.
Move that we approve resolution 1589.
Second that.
A motion by Commissioner Redlin, a second by Commissioner Showalter. Any other discussion? Roll, please.
Howard.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Redlin.
Yes.
Showalter.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to C, Resolution 1587 regarding the purchasing policy. I believe this is just more of a bookkeeping item.
We ended up identifying two different things with the same resolution number, so it was an error on staff's part, and we want a correction for the error in order to have resolution identifying only one thing. So
Any questions about that?
Motion that we approve resolution 1587.
Second that motion.
Have a motion by Commissioner Showalter and a second by Commissioner Howard. Any other discussion? Roll, please.
Yes.
Showalter.
Yes.
Redlin.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to 6 discussion items, starting with solid waste fuel adjustment. Kent?
this was pointed out to me by City Clerk Mary Volk, and within our contract with In the Can LLC, that provides, and we appreciate all the service that they provide as far as the trash service in town. The contract was originally entered into in November of 2016 and started in 2017. But within that agreement, they have Section 8, a fuel adjustment to charges for service. And the contractor had agreed to a base price for diesel fuel as $3.50 per gallon. For every 50-cent increase in the 6-month average cost of diesel fuel above that amount, so if it ends up averaging $4 for those 6 months, the rates for both the residential and commercial service rates will be increased by 1/4 to the city. Now, obviously, we charge people for trash, monthly amount. But there's nothing within the contract. It says here that they will increase their charges to us. But, we included that, staff included that in the packet. As far as in the code, we do not have, we have section 7.110, section 7.113, and section 7.114 that sets the charges and sets the rates. However, it doesn't include any provision for passing along or having any additional charges by the contractor, included in that rate, or a change to the rate that could naturally, I don't know if naturally occur, but could just automatically occur if we receive additional charges. Now, obviously, we have been, fortunate enough, or, the economy's been decent enough that diesel fuel has stayed within a moderate price the entire time since 2017. Obviously, we're seeing diesel price costs that are over that amount right now. And right now, our average for the first 5 months, it doesn't include June as yet, is at $4.25. So it will trigger that, with the 50-cent increase, the minimum amount, it'll increase a quarter increase. What staff was suggesting as a possibility is that we do need to should go ahead and make a change to the code, but we should let people know that this is forthcoming. I don't think with the cost currently, if it's a quarter increase, it could still be more. We could end up with an average that's over $4.50 a gallon for the 6 months. It's still an outside possibility. It just depends regarding diesel here. And, the entire month of June has been over $5, but it's more a matter of what's the average for the entire 6 months. We just do it on a monthly basis. We don't do it on a daily or a weekly basis. It's what each month is. But the city could handle within the reserves that we have within the health and sanitation fund to handle that quarter amount, which would end up costing us, what amount is that?
Up to $10 current customer rate.
For per month, so it'd end up about $3,000.
That's based on the number of customers that we have right now.
No.
Because we reevaluate that every 6 months.
Let me get back to the contracts before the little. I don't see the little CCCF form. Sorry about that. But one suggestion from staff is we could try to change the code and let people know that it's coming, that it's a quarter increase for the next 6 months for the cost of the trash. It's another increase to the city's utilities bill. I understand that. If it is going to only be a quarter, the suggestion from staff is we could go ahead and get the change done, but let people know that it'll be occurring. Because I'm almost guaranteed that we'll still have an increase in January. If not a quarter, we'll have more. And let people know that it'll be forthcoming in January. But for these first 6 months, we can take care of the balance at this point. That's the question, I guess, before you, or direction the staff needs regarding it. So it just hasn't come up until now.
So the cost to the city, if it goes up to 25 cents, is about $600 a month.
Yes, sir.
So do we have an idea of what kind of a rate we would be looking to pass on to the consumers on their bill to split that $600 amongst everybody? Did we have a dollar amount in mind?
I would
What?
just do a wash and do the fuel adjustment.
It would be a quarter for everybody's bill.
And that's including business also
Yes.
in there?
We have about 2,500 utility accounts. So a quarter of that's, it's a little less than 2,500. That's why it comes out to about $600 a month, or just over $600 a month. For each quarter. If it would go to 50 cents, obviously that's $1,200 a month. So.
To me, that seems like probably the fairest way to do that is to go ahead and take that cost in right now for these next 6 months and make sure everybody knows that we're going to potentially have to raise after that's over with. I feel like that's a fair notice. Everything's costing more now, and diesel is out of sight, so.
I know it's just a small amount, but I don't want, since we just passed a water rate increase and we may have to consider other increases, I don't want to keep giving increases without enough notification to folks. but we can do it either way. It's,
Just wanna make, this falls off though too, so like if diesel goes back down below 350, then this charge would fall off.
Which then you would write in the code that fell off of the customer bill also. You wouldn't charge them anymore.
Yeah, but so I just wanna make sure like it's like it only goes into effect if it goes above, like we're at 425, right? So then it's written in the code to say like if it ever hits this, whatever this amount is, we're charging 25 cents extra, and then if it ever goes below it, then we take it back off, right? Okay.
So on the city bill, like for the power plant, there's a fuel adjustment. This would be a waste adjustment charge that we put on there?
yes, sir. And the calculation is only done once every 6 months.
Right.
So it's not on a monthly basis. It's just once every 6 months or twice a year.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it almost, as we've gone several years without there ever being an issue. We're currently looking at, except if it was just 25 cents, it's not really that big of a deal. But you know, like I said, if it does continue to go up and it consistently stays there for the next several years, you know, then it will start affecting. So it's, I think 25-cent charge almost seems hardly worth it. I do think, I do kind of agree that wording the city code to mirror the changes that would come in with the contract is probably the appropriate thing to do.
The other thing we could include in any change is it's still a council decision whether it's passed on or not. It could, you know, it doesn't have to be automatic. It
Mhm.
could be decision by the board, or it could be left as, you know, kind of like how we did the electric. So it's consistent. So it's not an issue of politics. It's just those are the charges that were charged.
I think residents of Goodland would appreciate something that's consistent. They know it. If it does happen, it's gonna be there instead of, are we gonna have to pay it or not?
Right.
I think the future commissions too would probably appreciate us taking the politics portion out of it. I mean, if that's what the charge is gonna be, that's what the charge is gonna be. Don't make us vote every time to pass that on. So I wouldn't put that in the code, in the resolution.
So I'm kind of feeling like the direction is to draft something along the lines that basically just mirrors the cost up and down with the current contract. Is that kind of what everybody's saying?
Yes.
Not to go into effect until after the next 6-month valuation. Or do we wanna do it right
We're
now?
gonna we're basically taking care of this first 6 months or
Be
whatever.
my preference. Give them a 6-month head start to know that if it continues down that path, that we're gonna have to increase those rates.
Does that put us in any peril? No? Okay. Just, I know it's only $600, but.
Clear enough direction?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on that case? Okay, let's move on to B, the options domestic and sexual violence services, follow-up discussion. I had asked for this to come back up after our presentation last meeting, just to kind of see how everybody was feeling about it. I believe she had asked for 3,000, if I recall correctly. Didn't know what your guys' thoughts were. If you think that's a fair amount to offer from the city for their services, if the city should offer anything to have out their services.
I guess I would ask Mary to just go over what the donations to other organizations were. in the last couple budgets?
We have never given to these guys. They've requested it for a couple, 3 years. But the donations with last year's budget were all cut, at least in half, if not more. And the donations went to Freedom Festival, Northwest Tech Endowment, Flatlanders, and there was one more. Oh, the Sherman County Community Foundation. And last year, I think we cut them all at least half, if not more.
What's the average that we were giving to them?
Two
Like-
options, we have never given two
Uh,
options.
no, to the other organizations, was it like between?
Like Freedom Festival, which is a community event, you can kind of say that's economic development because you have everybody coming into town. You used to give them 5 and you give them 2 this year.
Okay.
The endowment, I can't remember what it was 2 years ago. I think it was 2,500. And this year we have 1,024. And Flatlanders, can't remember that one exactly. It was either 25 or 3. It might have even been more. They're down to 1,500 and the foundation is down to 1,000.
Chief Hayes, can you tell us a little bit about what interactions you guys have with them and what services they provide for Goodland residents?
Absolutely. Funny you say that, but a few days after, the president process, which we're not here to talk about, but it was a little slower than I would have preferred, but, they do everything. She said they will come get the person, they will bring them to a safe house. If they don't have a room in a safe house available, they will put them up in a motel. They actually paid for a few nights in a motel here until they could get here to bring her somewhere else. You know, it's kind of like your car insurance. You don't use it all the time, but it's nice to have when you do need it. We have used them on other occasions as well. That one just popped up because it happened right after the presentation. So, that's kind of their process. They feed them, they help with clothing, toiletries, you know, things like that you would need to provide. And they even go as far as helping them with legal services, job services, things like that. So it is definitely it's a big program. And they pretty much cover all their bases whenever they take a person in.
Thank you.
Does that help you?
That does, thank you.
And they do, so, she kind of ran through numbers of services she provided for us when she was here, you know, of residents within the county. And I assume that they probably deal with individuals not just through you, but on their own, not through the PD as well.
Well, so anytime we go to a domestic violence situation, we give them a packet, which Options offers us free of charge packets to give them. It's got their resources, phone numbers. So a lot of times we don't know if they call, but you are correct. They can do this on their own, which I would say in more cases than not, they do on their own. The only time we get involved as far as helping them do all this is if they want something right now. They're like, I've got to get out of here, I've got to, you know, we will put them somewhere safe, and then we will help them make the phone calls But in more cases, we leave them a packet and, you know, because they're not sure, they don't know what they want to do, they have to figure things out. So we don't put that pressure on them, just here's your resources, you know, they're there if you need them. So we don't know if they ever call.
Mhm. Do we have any other services in the county similar to this that people can turn to if they don't have this option?
Not to that extent. We do have Ministerial Alliance where they will, that is mainly for transients, but we can use it for like a situation like that. But they don't go to the extent of coming to pick them up, taking them to the safe houses and doing, you know, all the services. Other than that, there's nothing that I know of that will go to that extent for those services.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else have any other questions or comments?
You know, it's not just law enforcement that uses that service as well. I know at the college, I've called them before and had them come out and assist us with different things that were going on campus. So, and that was all provided free of charge to our students. So, you know, I know per policy, those guys are handing out those packets on domestic violence calls. That's all stuff that's provided to them free of charge. They put those packets together and give them to them to hand out. So they provide an important service that, you know, they call it 2 o'clock in the morning. They're there to help out.
I guess my thoughts are, you know, we have these other organizations that we donate to that we have cut our donations back to, but they're a whole different type of thing than what this is. You know, I think, you know, them coming, they've been helping our community for years and years and years, and we've never given to them to help them out. And I think we'll be doing ourselves a disservice and them if we don't start to support them in some way or another to help them through their cause. Personally, I think at least a 3,000, if not even more, to help them out is what I would want to do. Maybe even up to 5 is kind of where my heart sits with this program. But that's just where I sit, and not the rest of you guys. I'll let you speak to how you feel about it.
I think that the program's necessary. I think it's an important program. I don't know if it necessarily like addresses the main issue, because, you know, it's good and all that they remove them from the home and, you know, they try and set them on the right path, but most of the time those people they move back in with the same person or into the same type of a relationship, you know, and I don't know how extensive they go into like therapy and stuff like that. I don't know if that's really their main focus. I think their main focus is just to get them out of the situation, you know, and you know, try and just care for them. And I guess I don't know. I understand their purpose. I just don't know if that's where we should be focusing our funds. I don't know yet.
If I could speak on that, they do provide those services. It's basically whatever the need is, they do what they can to meet those needs. And the issue about, you know, the people going back into the situation, we can't control that. As law enforcement, we can't control that. All we can do is make that person safe at that time. So what they do after that, we can't control that. So if we had that frame of mind, then we wouldn't even help them the first time, you know. But we're sworn to keep people safe. That's what they do. They keep them safe. What they do after, we can't control, you know. So, to me, I mean, with all due respect, that's not a fair statement. You know, you raise your kids, you can't control what they do when they leave your house. So, kind of the same concept.
Chief, I think his concern more was he didn't know whether or not they did provide those services. They do.
Thank you.
It's not just showing up, you know, again, at 2 o'clock in the morning to
Mhm.
help remove somebody from a bad situation. I'm gonna say that's usually like the emergency route.
Yeah.
They also provide follow-up, family support groups and all that other stuff like that, so they do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the scenario that we utilized them for was them actually sending a therapist out to talk to the victim to help them understand why, you know, the police were on campus that day, why, you know, they had to act the way that they had to act, and, you know, definitely convince them that the services that they were offering were necessary. So, you know, I'm kind of in the same boat with Aaron. I think it's a worthy cause that we need to donate to. They've, you know, since I've been in law enforcement, you know, 20 years ago, they were still providing services to people within Sherman County and Goodland. I think, you know, keeping in mind that the donation budget has been cut, we've got other local organizations that have, you know, come to us and asked for money, and we've had to cut them. I don't know that I'm at the $3,000 level, but maybe we stick our toe in the water at $1,500 and, you know, at least let them know that we appreciate what they do, and hopefully pay for some of the work that they've put in to at least putting the packets together that we require the officers to hand out anyway.
My thoughts are probably about the same way. I know it's probably a needed service, which it is. 3,000 is probably a bit much for a starting point. Where the budget's going to be at this year, we don't know. We don't have no clue yet, and everything's going to be tight. And I would say the $1,500 mark would probably be a good starting point. We can always donate more if there is more to donate.
I agree with that. The 15.
Okay, so 1,500 seems to be kind of the consensus of the board, I think. Are we looking to like add that into the current budget cycle to start next year? Or looking into donate this year?
Staff hadn't prepared any possibility. We can come back next meeting with possibility if you want us to look into that.
Great.
I think. Right, thank you. Okay. Do you have anything else?
No.
Nope. Okay. Move on to C, park hours. Kent, if you would speak to that, please.
Sure, I will start talking and then Chief Hayes will jump in here.
Okay.
Included in your packet, the code section on parks. It does state that the laws of the city shall extend to the city parks and cover the parks, and the police jurisdiction have jurisdiction over the public property that's in the parks. But as we've had a number of situations over the last several months, over the last year or two, we continue to have vandalism and graffiti in our parks, specifically the restrooms and other areas. Danny could probably also speak to that, how many times he's had to fix various.
The biggest concern is, like I said, we've had the graffiti and the vandalism, you know, they, alcohol containers all over. You'd be surprised when the guys change the trash bags, how many alcohol containers are in there, with all the parks. And, like I said, they're kind of destroying city property, it just seems to be getting worse. Neighbors are kind of concerned when someone's over there midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, hanging around the cars. Usually they're up to no good. They're kind of concerned with what they're doing. It just seems to be getting worse. Like I say, we're busy enough as it is without cleaning graffiti, repairing city property. I mean, we can probably get done what we're supposed to get done without taking time out to fix all that stuff. So. It is a growing problem.
We do prohibit overnight camping, and we do have general regulations that the city may post general regulations in the parks. So we could just post something. But we also provided in the packet, staff did, as far as several other examples from other cities across Kansas, both big and small, that have, as part of their park regulations, they'll have park hours, and if the parks are closed from midnight to 6, 11 to 5, sometimes sunset to sunrise, and that's usually not the case, but mainly later at night. There's no reason for you to be in the park after midnight. And usually it's accompanied with some sort of ability for the officer to ticket the person. They don't need any other cause to stop the person. Now, there are times, and the chief can probably speak to it as far as, you know, they do go around and monitor the parks as best they can, but obviously there's other things going on too. They don't just protect the parks, but it does get difficult at times. And Chief, you may want to speak to that briefly.
Yeah, so with the graffiti, we kind of instituted that, you know, during shift, they will get out and walk through the parks and, you know, check. The trouble I see with that is sometimes we can't, you know, at 10 o'clock or 12. Sometimes it may be 3, 4 in the morning before we can actually get there, and damage is done. You know, with, at this time, one person working at night, they can't go to all these parks and, you know, on a regular basis because they're answering calls for service. You know, the bathrooms, the same thing. You know, if they were locked, they couldn't damage the inside. But I mean, we can, with being so dark and, you know, they're gonna see us coming before we even get close to them, just from headlights. So, I think it would give us if we actually had an ordinance, where it was, you know, an enforceable offense, you know, that could deter, a lot of things, because now it's like, even if there is somebody in there at 2 o'clock in the morning, we make contact with them. I don't know how they got there. That's not mine. We can't prove it, so it's just, okay, nothing we can do. We can't make you leave. We can't, you know, whatever. So I think if it's enforceable, it would be a deterrent, in a way, to the graffiti and vandalism.
Is locking of the bathrooms a big issue if we chose to do that, as far as 10 to 6 a.m. kind of thing? Is that?
We have to figure out a way.
Yeah.
With Josh, if we could do it with electronic device versus.
Yeah.
us
Having to go all the way over there?
we
Yeah.
can do that, but if we could do it with electronic device, you know, 10, when we come there at 7, and the departure check it daily, but,
Sometimes that gets difficult too, because you can't have cameras inside the bathrooms. That presents other considerations. And you don't want to lock someone in the bathroom.
That's true.
Don't forget, you'd be subject to your city hours as well. So
Right.
weekends and holidays.
Yeah.
we have had people, when we check them in the morning, let's say at 7, open the door and suddenly look down, someone's actually sleeping in there.
And we do have a number of restroom facilities. So it isn't just one set, 2 sets, it's,
We have to have 5 cars with 2 bathrooms, we've got 10 rooms. The ballpark bathrooms are locked up nightly after the game. City parks, we've got 5 sets of 10 rooms.
and it isn't just that gets damaged at times. It isn't just the bathrooms, it's,
The other night before, pickleball court, you know, have care for fountain chambers, it's a little bit of everything.
and this isn't gonna prevent everything, I understand that, but it just makes it, okay, we're able to contact you, it's 2 in the morning, you're not supposed to be in the park. You get to talk to the judge about it, so, about your nighttime activities. So.
Great service program.
I think it makes sense. Most communities close their parks in the evening, and like Chief Hayes was saying, it gives you another reason to contact somebody in the park where, you know, perhaps in the past, if they're just sitting there not doing anything, it would have been tough to have probable cause or reasonable suspicion to contact them. So I think it makes sense. I think we ought to go ahead and do it.
I'm in favor of that too. It's just sad that people don't have respect for other people's property.
And I think you probably see people driving by the water park or through there, you know, at all hours.
All hours of the night they drive through.
Over there.
Yep. There are some people that walk around over there at 5 o'clock in the morning. I will tell you that.
They used to come in at night when we had the water system, they used to come in at night, and turn the water on the park. It was dark, you know, I turned the water valve on, and I heard some yelling, and somebody was sleeping on the lawn, I guess, when I turned the water on, but it didn't take long.
Danny, you have the best stories.
Okay, so I feel like there is a consensus here to want to move forward in some regard.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's to be a matter of what kind of hours would we be looking at for shutting down the parks, and what kind of a penalty, or how the penalty would be written into the code, and how we wanted to do it that way.
We'll give you some suggestions and put forward what would be a reasonable recommendation to you, or maybe a couple different examples, and you can pick which one. Like I said, a lot of them are 12 to 6 or 11 to 5, or they vary as far as the actual hours, but and what the penalty is. But usually it's not too much of a penalty, but it's enough. Don't do it. You know.
I'd like to see something with and I've written one of these examples here, but a special provision for the commission to grant like a special permit or something for an activity going on.
Sure. You know, in another community I had, the Boy Scouts one night a year would have an overnight camp.
A camp or something.
Or any other type of special event. Sure.
Okay, anything else? Clear enough? Okay, well, let's move on to D, off-road motorcycles. Kent?
I will defer to police chief, at least to start the discussion.
Okay, so, I believe last week or week before, I was contacted, I can't remember his first name, Mr. Bauman. And he converted a dirt bike into a street bike. As far as everything, headlight, blinkers, tires. So we went to go get registered through the county, and they said they can't do it because his title or his motorcycle is titled as off-road. I looked, and you know, I know we did the thing with the MUVs, and it didn't say anything about motorcycles. So that's when I went to Kent, and I said, you know, this is what we're doing, and I said, I can't register it as an MUV because if you look at my ordinance, it has nothing on a motorcycle. I even called the treasurer. There's no way to change the title because that's how it was titled as. So I got to thinking, depending on, you know, inspection of that, to add or put an addition to the MUV ordinance about motorcycles, it would have the same restrictions. Can't ride it on a public highway. It would just be inside the city. And, you know, of course, driver's license, things like that. So I don't know. I told him I'd try to help him the best I could, because if it's technically an off-road bike, but it's built as a street bike, you know, I didn't see a huge issue in that, but, of course, that would have to be revised, so.
Something to add along with that, I've been asked about golf carts that have headlights, taillights, and everything else for city streets.
They can't be registered, or not registered, but, I'd have to do some checking, but I thought it said it had to go a certain speed. Did I read that Jake in there? Okay. Yeah,
As far as the UTVs and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to have enough horsepower so that it doesn't actually want to clog up the streets and stuff like that. But, obviously, you hate to be that guy, but the biggest concern is you have a vehicle that is not required to be street legal per se. We make an ordinance or a code to do that. You're gonna find a 12-year-old kid running around in a golf cart. Or, quite frankly, somebody's gonna come up with another enduro style bike. And same thing, if you don't have state regulations that tell you that they have to have a driver's license and all this other stuff, we're kind of creating our own category of motorized vehicle. The concern with the golf carts has always been somebody gets smashed with a really good one. That's usually been the main safety concern. I get it. People like golf carts. I like golf carts, but mine is 3 miles that way. But that's always been the concern. They don't generally come with safety precautions as opposed to the UTVs. They had roll cages, windshield, they were wearing helmets, had seat belts, had all that stuff, right? Had lights, blinkers, and yeah, they could get up to 40 miles an hour, stuff like that. So, take it as you wish, but that usually was the concern. Somebody comes through an intersection and gets plowed.
And then the caveat to what I was talking about, it's all street, I think Jay kind of touched on it, where does the line stop? Are people gonna build a big go-kart and put lights on it and say, I can drive up the street? So it's kind of where you wanna draw a line, as far as that goes, with golf carts, with, whatever else somebody can build, because they have some creative minds that can build some pretty cool stuff, but does it need to be on the city street? So, it's kind of, like I said, where you want to draw the line.
And I think there would, in any event, there would be a distinction between the main part of town and then getting on the state highways. Highway 24, K27, because of the different speed limits, that's where it becomes especially problematic with the alternative vehicles. So-
Right, and if it is not registered through the state, meaning the county treasurer's office, it cannot be driven on a state highway.
On a state highway.
Right.
So they can't even cross over a highway.
So they wouldn't be able to take either of those vehicles, even if we did something, to Walmart, as an example. Although I'm sure people would try.
People have.
Try, and they do.
Yeah, they've got to call it, so, but, honestly, we really don't have the issues with them trying, they kind of understand, because when I inspect their Razor or side by side, I let them know, you cannot ride this to Walmart, you can't go to, Miller's or wherever, it's on the, you cannot ride this on the state highway. I haven't had maybe one issue, and as soon as we found it, we stopped it, never had it. So they kind of understand, and like you said, there are some people that may try it, may get away with it once or twice, but it's not a huge issue as far as that goes.
Joshua was nice enough to pull up the ordinance regarding the UTVs up there. And reading through that, I kind of feel, and I mean, I don't remember the discussion when it was initially done, but I feel like the spirit of it is it's more kind of work purposes to have these vehicles than recreational purposes to have them on the street. And that's kind of the reason why they're allowed more than to just be off having fun on them, you know. And me personally, I feel like it's good the way it is, and I don't see a reason to mess with it and try to adjust things to include different types of vehicles of this sort or that sort. That's how I feel.
It works for me. I just brought it up. Somebody asked me, so I just brought it up.
Yep, yep, fair.
Like I say, where does it stop?
Yep.
Trying to create something like that, you're gonna,
Wherever we decide.
right?
Any other thoughts?
Amen, no, the way it is.
Yep, we'll get a table that.
Okay.
Okay.
On to the next.
On that note, let's move to cemetery rules and regulations. Kent, if you want to start on that.
Well, there's been a discussion topic both with the cemetery board and about a couple different situations at the cemetery itself that keeps occurring lately. And I asked a couple cemetery board members to come and be able to speak to the issue, and also Joni, cemetery caretaker, is here as well. So Dick, if you wanted to come up and speak to what we try to do to make sure.
I'm Dick Hayden, chairman of the board.
Hello?
I got Jen Moore here, that's the secretary, and of course Johnny's the caretaker out there. So basically what we got is we got some people who are doing their own thing out in the cemetery. Things you wouldn't expect to have happen. Including, we got overextended with flowers and stuff on graves, which it says right on the rules, you can't have anything out of line from the monument. So we need to kind of deal with some of that. But we also got a person that wants to put her own private park in out there. And I don't think that's any good. We've already voted as a board not to allow it, and the person slipped it through and allowed it anyway. So we're going to deal with that again. And I don't know what else we got. Yeah, we've had people having their hammocks set up between trees and sleeping out there at night, so, and during the day. Even had a barbecue here about a month ago out there.
Interesting.
You'd be surprised at what happens at night in Goodland.
In case anybody's wondering, there's nothing goes on at the cemetery, there's a lot goes on, but anyway. We just wanted to let you guys know what is happening. And I do have the rules, and I think you guys all have a copy of the rules. So we're not trying to step on anybody, but doing what we're doing.
Well, and the two main issues that we highlighted in the rules for y'all was number 6 under planting and care of plots. It says no fencing, coping, or enclosure of any kind will be permitted on burial plots. The placing of glass-covered boxes, chairs, benches, iron or other crosses, trellises, shelves, toys, metal designs, and similar articles upon graves or burial plots is inconsistent with the proper keeping of grounds, and the city will not be responsible for loss or damage to any portable articles left on any burial plot and grave. Now, we're not concerned when the number of items is a few, and that it's there for a temporary time. That's not the concern. The concern is, and Joni may be better to speak about it, is the number of items gets to be, there's never anything taken away, and there's always about once or twice a week there's something added to the list, and pretty soon it becomes, it becomes too much. And no, there isn't in the rules regarding what's the number that's too much. But when it starts drifting over and piling over onto neighboring plots, that is too much. And before, and why this is such a concern is that there is going to be some discussions with the family members that are doing this, and we know that it's a very tough time, and we are sensitive to what it is, but we also, there's a reasonableness. And that's what the discussion is going to be with the folks. And then just wanted to make sure if there's, gets to be much more than a discussion, it becomes much more difficult for the cemetery caretaker or anybody with the cemetery board with it, that you guys understand the rules that were brought to the commission beforehand, and that there's authority for the people responsible for the cemetery to take care of situations like this. Because it is becoming almost a monument in itself. And we want to also be consistent between, it isn't just one family, it's a couple different situations. And it's not trying to be selective on who we're talking to, but we also want it to be minimal, what is placed, and also that it's temporary. It's not a permanent monument. The headstone is the permanent monument to the person who's laid there, and that honors that person. Everything else, that's good on a temporary basis, but it's also, let's keep the number down, let's keep the extravagance down, and like the items they said, and within this, some of those things can't be there at all. And that's what the discussion's going to be about.
Make sure you guys know what we're dealing with.
Yeah, and I've been out and I've looked at the sites in question regarding this particular issue, and you're right, there was a lot of stuff there, and I know I wanted kind of clarification as to what the expectation is regarding the sites, so that we are all aware, so that if we get a phone call or get contacted with complaints regarding things being removed, that we have a proper response to give the people regarding, these are the guidelines written out regarding the cemetery and the caretaking of the cemetery. And
We do know that this is a very sensitive deal for whoever's, no matter who it is out there, that if they've lost somebody and they're wanting to pay a tribute to them. Some go out there and eat lunch with their wife or something that's died. Anyway, talks to them, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we just got to be able, the caretaker has to be able to take care of it, and mow the place and stuff like that. And if you got too much stuff around, it's kind of hard to do. And I don't really want to cause anybody any grief. Sometimes you have to do a little. It is a public place.
yeah.
And that's why there's rules.
Yep, that's it.
Well, and the other big situation that it hasn't happened yet, but it could happen, as far as, and that's the other one, that's monuments. The owner of each, under F, says that the owner of each burial plot shall have the right to have erected by a monument company any proper headstones, monuments, memorials thereon, after first receiving the permission of the caretaker. And then it gives rules for that. But it is a public cemetery, and there's really not, there's a idea put forth that almost makes it a separate cemetery or a separate little park area for one set of headstones. And that gets to be a bit much. That it's the City of Goodland Cemetery. It's not, the Howard family or the Redland family cemetery, as an example. And that's given some pause or raised some serious concerns with the cemetery board as a whole. So, and just wanted to bring it to your attention if there's some discussions and there's some pushback regarding that, because the person has bought additional lots. That doesn't mean that the additional lots they're for other people to be buried. It's not to create a park for you, so.
So, I mean, I would just assume, and I think most people would just assume regarding the cemetery, that one plot, one person, you know. So, I'm assuming all these different plots are not within the same person's name, because,
They can't legally buy, according to the rules, they cannot legally buy more than one plot per name.
so, yeah, I mean, it's, I guess I don't understand where the idea would come from that you could buy plots under multiple people's name to have for your own one personal area,
Well, it's a family thing.
you know. But
So we just wanted to make you aware, and that it's forthcoming, and that there's gonna be different discussions to be had. And, that they wanna make sure we're all on the same page before moving forward with those difficult discussions.
Anybody else have any other questions or comments?
Appreciate your work on some delicate subjects, but, I can see where having too much stuff out there makes it tough on Joni to try and mow. So,
Because of hazard, we have all these glass containers and especially
Yeah.
sharp glass everywhere. If there is glass, I generally do remove them,
mhm,
just because, I have a lot of people, a lot of kids that work for me, and I don't want to get hurt.
yeah.
So I have stepped on a couple toes, where did my container go? I will remove the fires that usually lay in there, but I will remove the glass containers.
And as far as the overnight guest thing, I believe aren't there signs still on the gates that say when the hours are? And then it's closed.
Not out there.
'Cause I know we used to lock the gates out there and then anybody can get in, but as far as I'm concerned, it's just like a city park. I mean, if you got police departments doing a drive-through, they can
You can drive through there.
come to
and
leave.
tell you which containers, where all the alcohol.
Mhm.
I'm trying to do some different things out there to tour that, but I haven't seen a relief in some of the areas that your things are locked.
Mhm. And just say work with Chief Hayes and make sure they're aware of where you're having issues at, and they can have people to leave, just like a park.
Called out there several times. So.
Yeah.
And we
Okay.
drive through it, I mean,
Just like everything else, not enough for you to go around, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just have
Turn the water on.
Trouble is, we don't have a sprinkler system out there to turn on.
So you mentioned that at one point in time that the gates were locked during that hours. Do we know at what point did that change, and why did that change happen as to why they're not locked in the evening anymore?
Gates got hit by a car, and then I believe they took them out.
After the break-in. They quit locking them after the break-in.
We locked them until that break-in, and then we decided it was good to have the chain locked on the gate. We tried it on with them locked, without them locked, it doesn't seem to matter. They do what they're gonna do, whatever.
Even the people who maybe aren't necessarily there to steal and vandalize people just in the middle of the night, has there been an increase in those people being out there since the gates have not been locked?
Well, there's stuff goes on out there that really shouldn't be. But if we had the gates locked, they'd still be out there doing it somehow. We found out that by trial and error.
I know at one time those gates got hit by a car, and they were down for a long time.
People have been locked in there,
Yeah.
you know, I
Yeah.
know that for fact, people have been locked in, and I go out and unlock it, and let them out.
Yep. Just do the best you can do. That's all we can
That's all
do.
you can do.
Yeah.
Do.
We just wanted to let you guys know so you know,
Thank you.
in
Right.
case you get a phone call complaining about us.
Thank you, Mr. Hayden. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, any other discussion items? And we'll move into reports, starting with city manager, Kent.
Include a manager memo in your packet. one other thing is, or the first thing I put on there is valuation information in the budget. We did receive notification this week of what our preliminary valuation, or estimated assessed valuation, and it did go up as far as the total value of all properties in the city of Goodland, which is, it will be what we're gonna work with. Last year's budget, or this year's budget for 2022, the valuation was 35,082,448, so just over 35 million. So that means each mill raises about $35,000 is the quick and short answer for that one. And then for 2023, the estimated evaluation, it will be 37,433,732. So each mill will generate about $37,433. So that's an increase of about $114,000 would generate. But with the R&R rules, that would, if we would follow that, we would lower from 48 mils down to 45 mils. 48 and change is 48.879, 45.811. So it's just 10 more than 3 mils to meet that adjustment in our evaluation. Obviously, property values have gone up, but just like one of the discussions we've had here, our costs are going up as well. So, just wanted to give you that initial number, let that sink in. That'll be one of the discussions, and we'll have to have when we present the budget at next meeting, and there'll probably be one more meeting after that at least, unless you would schedule a special meeting to work on it. But we need to decide by, it's the week of July, just shortly after that second meeting in July. We need to decide whether we will meet that R&R rate or not. So that will be one of the hardest topics to discuss during the budget process.
So could we get, especially for the new commissioners, a little clarification? That's exactly what the R&R regulations kind of say.
You're not asking a veteran yet so far, but what it basically means is that it's the net revenue neutral rate. You know, for net R&R, revenue neutral rate.
Yeah.
So that whatever you have gathered in property taxes for this year should be the same dollar amount in the next year. It doesn't matter what your valuation is, it's okay, whatever is needed to generate the same exact dollar amount for the subsequent year. And if you're going to exceed that, you will need to publish newspaper. You also need, this year, it'll be a little bit different from last year, the first year it was instituted, but this year we will have to notify the county clerk. That's what happens in July. We'll have to know the county clerk, and the county clerk will send letters to each individual household saying there will be a hearing to exceed the R&R rate at some scheduled time, and that people could come and say something. Doesn't mean that there's a decision one way or the other regarding the R&R rate. It just means that there will be a hearing for the public to voice their opinions about it. And then if you exceed the R&R rate, then there's additional things that you have to do to send to the state to notify them that you did. Last year, or the first year that they had it, there was a number of, and that will happen, I should stop myself, that will happen for every taxing organization. So they'll each send a separate letter to people's households for each taxing organization that's part of your property tax bill. Because your property tax bill includes us, Sherman County, the school district. The state won't have any because they have 1.5 mils, but that is constant. They don't change it ever. And they excluded themselves from that requirement, I think. So, you know, they only make rules for other levels of government. Sorry, that's a cheap shot, I shouldn't say. Because each level of government is difficult. So, but they've made that rule for us that we will need, and there'll be a separate public hearing. We already have a public hearing regarding the budget. So the overall budget will have a public hearing. And Commissioner Howard and Commissioner Thompson can tell you how many people come and do voice regarding their regular budget hearings.
Packed, it's packed.
But, you know, we will have to have two public hearings, one for the R&R, and if we decide to go that route. If we choose not to, we won't have that hearing. And then there won't be anything sent to the House. But so for each of the organizations, I think Mary was telling me that the other organizations chose not to meet the R&R for last year. The city of Goodland did. They did drop it from, we were at 50 mils, and we dropped to 48.811. So, is that right? No, 879, sorry. So this year, it will, and I remember seeing the video of interim manager Sheree Stephen stating that it has a compounding effect. And so it isn't just this year, because next year's, and this is just an example of that, it doesn't stop. Each year is kind of by its own, by itself. So in 2 years, if we follow this, the city will have dropped 5 mils, which is, that's 10% of one of the major, probably, it is one of the major revenue sources for the city services. So, but we will have that additional discussion, and we will have additional information for you, both pros and cons, regarding how that affects the budget that's presented. So, we are still, staff has a budget put together. We're a few $100,000 away from sea level. So we're still working on it as far as a recommendation to you. So, to be able to present to you. So we got a ways to go. It's not, and we will have some decisions for you. It won't be just staff making those decisions. You'll get to make decisions, and any decision that staff makes, the commission can recommend going a different way. So none of those are etched in stone, but we will let you know what decisions we put forth in order to get to the point where we're presenting. Any concerns, comments, complaints, questions?
Not yet.
17th Street project update. Andrew from EBH had to be at a meeting in Anthony tonight and tomorrow, so he's not able to be here with us tonight. But the north side of the last, phase 2 they call it, but the last 100 feet, a little more than 100 feet at the east or the west end of the project, they poured the north half of the street at the end of last week. It is now open. What they're hoping to do is set the curb tomorrow for that 100 feet. They're allowing the trucks to be able to go through that north half. And then they're going to start working on the south half of that 100 feet. Wednesday, there's a 2-foot buffer little strip that they end up doing. And then Thursday, they're gonna do the rest of that south portion. And then they're hoping by next Tuesday or Wednesday to have the whole project open. So by our next meeting, that whole street should be open. So they have finished within timelines, or they should be. So trucks are really moving into Schooler, I noticed earlier today, so it's happening right about the time it should be. But Schooler wanted it completely done. There was 2 weeks that it kind of got messed up for us, but or for the contractor, not really for us, but they are able to, the trucks are able to get in and out of Schooler on a rapid pace that they needed to go at this point.
Good.
Airport, anything additional to that, Kenton, regarding the 17th Street?
Make sure that north half was strong enough to handle the traffic going through, so that's why it's opened a little earlier than the week where they were last week. Now it's open, so.
Completed all the tests, concrete testing all the way along. It's worked well. So Spores has been good to work with. As far as the airport, some of my other little notes. Phase 2, which is the 300 feet that's next to the main runway, which caused our main runway to be closed for 21 days. We are currently at day 14. The contractor, Smoky Hill, poured the final section of that 300 feet this morning. And they will open the main runway. They'll get the saw cutting they need done by Thursday, but they're looking to open the main runway to all 24 hours per day air traffic beginning Thursday, this Thursday, day 17.
Good.
So a few days early. This will be with visual VFR only, visual approaches only. They're not going to be able to get the IFR or the instrument approaches back online. That's controlled by the feds, and they're not. You're shut for 21 days. We haven't counted to 21 yet. So,
That makes sense.
yeah, and there's too much notification that has to go on. So, throughout this phase, they've had the runway shut down during daylight hours on Monday through Friday only. And they have allowed Eagle Med to operate at night out of the Goodland Airport and on the weekend. So that's worked out. As far as we're concerned, the contractor's on schedule to finish the project well within contract days. So they will proceed to phase 3, which is the rest of the area towards the creek. If you look at the map up above, it's basically from about this point on east up towards the creek. And they are building the dirt up at the east end as well. They finished the base material for the turnaround that's at that end already, but they got a lot of dirt work left to do and some concrete. A lot of concrete to pour. So, any additions, subtractions to that report, Kent? Okay. Just want to make sure I'm on target. And that's about it for that, for the airport runway.
Okay.
We had a request and we made some quick changes to the planter on the east side of the intersection at Highway 24 and Cherry. The Pioneer Park planter, or the raised planters at the entrance, the it was in not that decent a shape. The plants, some of the plants had been, had not decided that they had had enough of Goodland, so they decided to exit stage right. And Danny made some good changes to it, and I think we're dressed up for, especially for a reunion in a week or so. So, anything else to add to that, Danny? You guys don't say a whole lot. He's also dressed, looking for additional plants on the west planter as well, because some of those have died over the years as well, and it's not as full as it once was. It's just dressing those things up. We also received our dividend check from our insurance, which ended up for being with EMC for $34,834 and some change. So,
Disregarding the lightning strike? on the
no, this
wells?
is our overall insurance and basically our safety and other things that we do and how many claims that we file. You end up as being part of the group, you end up with a dividend. So you end up with about this amount dividend check on an annual basis. So we end up paying them far more and they give us a check back and we smile when we receive a smaller check. So
And does that check just go right back into the insurance fund, or where does that money go?
I said it with what we pay insurance with is.
Okay.
and we've had initial discussions with SCCD, who's putting on the concerts in the park, regarding possibly having a community barbecue or the commissioner's barbecue, coordinated with the last concert in the park on August 12th, which will be at Stever Park. So it's kind of a return to school type bash and other good things. Looking at a good act who's coming and something else special, which of course I didn't write down, which I should have written down. Another special thing that will occur with that event as well. Would that be a good possibility to hold that?
Sounds good.
Since you guys have brought that up last weekend.
Yeah.
Staff, mainly myself, was saying I would bring back multiple dates, but I'm saying it's really only one date. And hope you like the choice.
Well, my calendar looked okay as of today, so. Yeah, I think it'd be good to be able to have that in conjunction with one of the groups that's coming in, so.
We also continue our various groups help other agencies or other entities as required. The city of Brewster ended up calling us, asking us for assistance. We ended up providing them a piece of equipment that helped them out quite a bit with a water main break that they were having. That they weren't able to get a piece of equipment that they needed, we were able to help them out. And our electric crews also helped out. They had a sign problem at 24/7 and they were able to help out. The vendor was not going to be able to come and they were getting contacted by the state patrol to get something taken care of. I don't know why the state patrol was concerned with it. But our electric crews went out and assisted them and took care of it. And that was nice we were able to respond. It's not a normal thing for us to respond like that, so I thank Dustin and his crew for doing that.
Yes. Thank you very much, guys, for going above and beyond out there.
Don't want it to make it a regular expectation,
Mhm.
but it was something, so. That's it.
That's it. Anybody have any questions or comments for the city manager? All right, thank you. We'll move on to city commissioner reports. We'll start down here at my left, Commissioner Redland,
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Howard.
Everything's good and
Mhm.
everything's good.
Commissioner Myers,
Nothing to report here?
Commissioner Showalter.
I think why, Joni and, Mr. Hayden and Mrs. Lohr here, I want to say thank you for your service to the cemetery board and everybody that serves on all the boards throughout the community. It's not without volunteers from the community that, we're able to get some of the things done that we're able to do. And we can't do all that stuff, so we appreciate you guys stepping up and doing that for us. And specific thank you to the city employees working through this heat right now. I remember what it was like to be in a bulletproof vest when it was 100 degrees outside. It's not fun. And I drove by, and Dustin's crew was out up in the bucket truck today, and I can't imagine how hot it must be up there. So thank you guys for the work through the heat right now.
The heat and the wind.
That's right.
Okay, good.
When you're done, I'll have one over. So.
Okay. I was contacted by Kathy Schimmerhorn over the weekend, and we talked a little bit, and I know it was kind of brought up a while ago that she would like her contract to be at least looked at that we have, and it's the contract that's between both the city and the county
Oh, that one. Okay.
that we have. She says it's the same contract that she's had, I believe she said, for 12 years now, and there's never been any adjustments on that one. I don't know if that's correct or not. That's
Pretty
what she
close to
said, but
accurate, yes.
she was just like, like everything else, she says her costs and expenses are going up too, and she feels like maybe it's time for it to be looked at if we would. So, and I know that I assume at some point in the near future we should be meeting with the county again anyway. One, just because it's been a while, and two, I'm hoping that maybe the information regarding the sales tax will be coming up to a point soon where it can be discussed as to whether we like the wording or not of what might be going out for a vote. But just whenever we get our next joint meeting with the county, just want to make sure that discussion about Kathy's contract's on there.
I'll check again with the county clerk, but she had not advised us that she had received the wording from the bond attorney as yet.
And that's all that I had. So go ahead.
We've have a situation regarding fuel, and there's been two different directions given by previous boards regarding fuel. Now, this is our bulk fuel purchase. And we purchase two types. We purchase unleaded and we purchase diesel fuel. And we need to purchase about 8,000 gallons of the unleaded and about 3,000 or 4,000 of the diesel. And we ending up getting a quote from a local vendor, but then we've also end up contacting a vendor who has a small business in town, small gas station in town, but the bulk fuel comes from out of town. And there's been direction from the board previously, we need to support our local businesses. And then the other is, well, we need to be budget wise. Well, you know, it's several $100s difference between the quotes that we receive. And we just wanted to clarify, as an example, is those type of purchases just support local, or is there any possibility for not any consideration given otherwise, just because it happens on a regular basis, we do it on a regular basis, and staff ends up in a situation where do we go with the local, or then are we going to be have our chops not busted, but you know, have something said saying, but you could have gotten it cheaper somewhere else.
I guess my question to that is, when is it decided to make the purchases? Is it like when the tanks hit a certain amount, we go out and quote this amount every single time? Is it just whenever we decide we just need to top off the tanks, we just ask around and see what it is?
No, we end up, it's between 20 and 40% of the fuel that we have left. We have plenty left for a little while, but that's about when we go.
And about how often do we have to refill?
2, 3, 4 times a year, 2 or 3,
Pretty close.
2 or 3 times a year. Last time we purchased was in February, I believe. And this one's gonna make it about July 1st, so.
So basically, we just get an overall dollar amount quote.
Yeah.
To fill up whatever,
Well, we
however
gotta
many
put-
gallons
yeah,
of each
yeah.
tank. But yeah, which then figures out into an overall dollar amount of
Yeah.
what we're. I mean, I guess my thoughts would be, however it aligns with the purchasing policy that we approve, but that goes into, are we looking at the per gallon amount or the total amount at the bottom of the bill, at the bottom of the quote? We do like to favor locally to a point if we can. Like I said, if it's a significant difference between quotes, and especially right now, like everybody else, we have to watch our budget just like everybody else. So I mean, it would be my personal thoughts and recommendations that at that point, we need to just go with the best quote, especially if it's a large amount. If it's a quarterly thing that needs to be done every quarter. I don't know if that's.
Well, I appreciate the comment about following the purchase of the policy. That makes it easier. So.
Yeah. I feel that's why we got that put in place to help with these type of decisions, But I know that's that's the kind of thing where it's inconsistent. It's not the same every time. It depends on how much fuel you use during which months. But that's my thoughts.
We can always also give them an option to show the other quote too. As a business person myself, I mean, if I'm in the running but I don't know how far I'm off, there's a possibility that they might be able to do a little bit more for using a local company.
That being said, you should give your best price that you can give.
True, agreed.
Is the difference hundreds or is it 1,000 or?
It's significant enough for us to ask.
Because I mean, 8,000 gallon at $5 a gallon, yeah, that's a chunk of money.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's about 9 cents difference on one and a penny on the other. So it's not that, it's not, that's not going to be the issue. It's just, okay, how can we be consistent in our communication to them what we're going to do? And since the direction has been given in a couple different ways before, wanted some clarification before we communicate.
Policy is a good way to go.
We'll do that.
Anybody got anything else?
Make a motion to adjourn.
A motion by Commissioner Showalter,
I'll second that.
second by Commissioner Howard. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.